Hi, and welcome back to the Mob Mentality Show. I'm Chris Lucian, and my co-host is Austin Chadwick. And today we're going to talk with Tim Nolan, Bala Palaniswamy, and Husham Mohamed. And we are going to talk about mobbing in local government. So, if Tim, if you wanted to kind of take it away, and just maybe we'll get started with introductions first, and then we'll go through. So maybe you can introduce yourselves and then we can get into the mobbing.
Fantastic. All right, my name's Tim Nolan. I work at Collin County, Texas. That's in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, just north of Dallas. And I have been here for a long time. My beard is white as a result of how long I've been here. So I'll pass it on to Bala. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I am Bala Palaniswamy, and I work in the application development team with Collin County. And I had been with the county since 2011, and we do a lot of great things here. Thank you.
Husham?
I'm Husham Mohamed, working for application development for Collin County. I have been here for 2 months. That's all.
Fantastic. Well, welcome to the show. So you started mob programming as part of government work, and so maybe you can talk to us a little bit about that. How did that start, and where did it lead?
Yeah, well, I'll give you a quick synopsis. We were attempting to be agile back in 2011, and we chose Scrum as our method to be agile, and that worked great. I mean, we did a lot of good projects, but over the years, we got kind of tired, right? I mean, going through the ceremonies. I think there was a term out there called zombie Scrum. We were just going through the motions, and we got to a point where we just weren't happy anymore. The quality of work, wasn't bad, but we weren't inspired any longer. So about that time, now we're up to like 2019. I went to the Agile 2019 conference in DC and basically followed Woody Zool around like a puppy. I went to every session that he did. I talked to him. He's wonderful, and his advice to me was just try it. Right? I mean, how do you mob? I don't know any other governments mobbing. None of that matters. Just get in there and try it. So when I came back from the conference, I go, okay, team, we're going to try something new. Now, I'm the manager. So I'm excited that we're going to try something new, but staff was like, oh crap, a manager's coming back and telling us what excitement they have. So, but we decided to try it, and it helped a lot because what we learned early was when we have outages or all hands on deck, we do great work, but we're panicked. Can we achieve this all hands on deck approach without the panic? And that's kind of what we did. So when we started doing the work that was in our backlog, we started mobbing it, and we found that we really liked it. And so what I'll do, I'll stop it there because that's I was not part of these mob sessions because again, I'm too managey. I need to back off and let the team be the team. So Bala, why don't you take it from there? These first couple of months before COVID, tell me about your mob experience.
So actually, when we started mobbing, right? So there was no remote working. So if we used to work from the office. So we are all co-located, the team, but still we were doing Scrum. So we before Scrum, right? So here the county, we have a lot of departments, and each like we have several department heads. So there's always everybody they want their work to be prioritized. So when we started Scrum, we used to just prioritize the backlog, and we used to work what's committed on the storyboard. But still, people were working silo, and we would get interrupted with day-to-day fixing issues. So when we started mob programming, so we were all co-located in one. We would go find a conference room wherever it's available, and the whole team would be in the room, and there would not be any other distractions. Only one. We would bring only one laptop to the session, and there would be one driver, and none of others would turn off their phones, and no check-in email, and no other distractions. So some team members, they were a little skeptical. Are we wasting too much time doing this? And there's no design. Everybody's throwing out design on their just whatever comes to their head in the session. But what we learned after doing it for like one sprint, 2 weeks worth, 2 weeks, then we realized more things were getting done. People were not getting interrupted, and we were delivering product much faster than before we used to. And the main thing was before we did mob programming, each one had their own area of expertise. So if that person goes on vacation and it's then there's we just if I go on vacation, people would call me. Then I have to work on the issue. But since we started doing mob programming, the knowledge share was great, right? Everybody now exactly know from the design and what we coded and we tested. So the knowledge share was happening, and people who were skeptical too realized, and this was going great. And since then we have and since then COVID started, right? So then we had that Tim mentioned we had a COVID vaccine project, and we did a COVID case investigation in the beginning. So we were all remotely located, and it was great. We were already trained to do mob programming, working in a group. So when we went work from remote, it all we already were doing mob programming, so it was the second nature. We just did it.
Yeah.
And yes,
just to add to that, I mean, what we found it was also easy is that you can bring in others to the mob when necessary.
Yeah.
Like Husham, for instance, he was on our GIS team when we first started mobbing. And when we started working on some of the COVID projects, we brought him in because we wrote a dashboard to go along with the case management stuff. And so he was able to just be part of the team for that project. So Husham, how's it been? You had a little taste of mobbing there.
Yes.
But now you're a full-time dev.
Yes.
What's that experience been like?
Yes, from the first day I was just like any new hired employees, scared about how we kind of go to be adapted to the new environment and new department. And to some extent, just I found that there's no any delays in any question, no delays in answering my question to get involved in projects and stuff like that. And I learned that it is not about shining as individual. So we have to do it as a team. So I get knowledge sharing from the other colleague, and I get more confidence that I can be effective and productive with mobbing.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah, that was a great intro, everyone, to your some of your mobbing journeys, and we definitely want to hear more of those stories. But I had a couple of questions about the domain or the space of government in mobbing, because for me this is, I've never even heard of that. It's always been other companies or consultancies or training and that kind of thing. What are there any unique challenges in government or unique benefits even for being in that space versus being in a private company?
Well, I can't speak to being a private company. I'm a lifelong bureaucrat. So, but what I learned is you have to be a certain size to be agile in government. So I do a lot of work, in Texas with other IT departments. We have a conference that we have every year. And most of the people that show up to that are like 2 or 3 people shops, and that's it. And it's hard to really, if you're the IT director, and then you have an assistant, well, then you're just setting up email for the mayor. You're just, so it seems like there's almost like a maturity model, like, small governments that have small ITs, they just do operations. And then maybe you can add infrastructure. And then maybe you can add applications where we are, and you got to be big enough to do it. And then once you have an applications team, then you can start doing some of these techniques, like mobbing or just anything agile or Scrum or anything like that. So life was easy for us because our CIO, Karen Skipworth, said, "This is something I want you to try." So she allowed us. So it was really a top-down approach, meaning that we didn't have to convince anybody that we should do this. I go to a lot of meetups here in the DFW area, and we started with a lot of others about the same time. And we were able to move forward because we had leadership that allowed us to do it. Where some of the private sector people, they're still like quietly being a scrum team. Don't tell anybody we're down here in this closet to get some stuff done. And I found that if you do have that sort of pipeline from management that says yes, you can do this, or at least experiment with it, and then we proved it. We delivered on some stuff. So then after a while, we don't even know that we're agile or we're mobbing. We're just getting stuff done.
Yeah, like our elected officials too, right? In the beginning, they were skeptical, and right. So once we started doing agile, and they saw we are delivering product much in an efficient way, and they embraced it, right? So now they too know, and so they don't mind waiting, right? And they're getting a well delivered product. They delivered on time.
Yeah. That is kind of nice to have the county clerk use the nomenclature, like, hey, can you add this project to your backlog? I'm like, oh, okay.
That's fantastic.
Knowing that once it gets on the backlog, they feel like it's going to get done, until it gets there, So that was a, to have an elected official kind of speak your language was really
nice. Yeah. Bala, earlier you had said that you were looking for conference rooms all around, and it reminds me of when I first started mobbing. We didn't have any mobbing spaces, and so it was going from conference room to conference room and booking for 2 hours at a time. Mm-hmm. So that was very reminiscent.
So our building have only limited number of conference rooms, so we would go find training area, or we would even go to a different part of the town. So we have a records department in another part of the town where we are.
Nice.
So we would book the conference room. They had it, so we would just drive there, and everybody just loved it to being co-located and just solving the puzzle problem, right? So it was a really great experience when we did in-person mobbing.
And you were also saying that you were interrupted less, and this is something that we experienced, quite a bit. Was that if we were by ourselves at our desk, no one had a problem coming up and saying, "Hey, can you do this really quickly for me?" And so that was another big improvement that we saw when we first started mobbing, was that people are like, "Oh, they're in a meeting, and I'm not going to bother them right now."
So Chris, for the first 2 weeks, right? So we just did not bring anything. We just went hiding, right? Mobbing. So people needing, they were waiting, and nobody would go and check their email or see what's out there, right? But later we realized you don't have to be in the mob, right? I can be there for half a day, and if I get a call, I can just walk out, and it's still going. Development is still happening.
Yeah.
I don't miss anything. They don't miss anything. And when I come back, I can seamlessly join back into the right. So that started happening. But the only thing is now remote mobbing. Tim's here, but still when I'm mobbing, right? When you're co-located in a room, you're not checking your phone, you're not checking your email, or you're not answering your phone. Still those interruptions, remote mobbing, that is my challenge. I keep looking at email and write other things, and I get distracted. So that is one thing still I need to. I don't know if I can stop it.
Yeah, you bring up something interesting, Bala, that we still remote mob even though we're co-located. So we still stay at our desk and all those, that's what we've decided to continue to do.
Yeah.
Just to kind of keep the distance.
It is convenient that because of that, right now everybody has a keyboard to type on.
Yeah.
Right? If you're in a room, there's only one driver. Yeah.
That's very true. Yeah, and I think you had another interesting comment about kind of training new employees for knowledge share. So maybe we can dig into that training new employees topic a little bit.
Well, I mentioned Husham was kind of added to our one of our first mobs to do the COVID case management system, to do the dashboard and the mapping side of things. And so we got a taste. But now that we've hired Husham full time, our approach was, well, just learn from the mob. So Husham, why don't you tell us about that experience?
Yes, my first mobbing, it was just like a training, because just keep watching what they are doing, and I keep asking, what's this for? Where the domain, where the server, how many server we have, and this like knowledge sharing, because there's many techniques and technology I had never used before. Then when they mention it, I dig on that one by myself. Then if I have any question, then I will ask it during the mobbing. And in a few times, I learned a lot from this experience, which I did not know before.
Right on, right on. Yeah, how is that compared to other onboarding experiences you've had?
Oh, well, that one is like just individual shining. So you do everything by yourself and you get stuck, then you have to find the solution. But right now, if you get stuck, you have a support, you have a back to support you. And even they observe all your mistakes, spelling, syntax during the code. So what's happening? It is a cumulative effort from all the team during the mobbing. So we can it is lead to a good quality of product in less time.
Nice, right on, very good.
In Austin and Chris, we kind of hire for life around here. So Husham is our first new hire in 10 years. So we don't have any other example.
Yeah, Tim, I can think of one. Same thing was going through my mind too. We don't hire too often. People don't leave, but we have a web designer last year. She started. You remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were in the middle of the COVID project, and our UI, it was not very. So she came and she jumped on the mob, and she was up to the knowledge in a couple of days. She knew exactly what was going on. Tim can right the prior person.
And that brings up a good point. I mean, we try to we have a cross-functional team as much as possible. Usually there's a DBA, we've got a few devs. We bring in expertise when we need it. Like in this case, we really needed a nice, we were writing something for the public. So we wanted to make sure that the public could understand and engage with it. And we just hired Adela Ruiz, who is our web developer. And we're like, hey, we mob. This is how we do stuff. And she engaged immediately. I mean, I think what I've observed is that people can be involved immediately. There's not too much of a J curve or a long time to train and learn. Everyone's there, and if like Husham mentioned, for a while you can just observe. If this is not something you feel comfortable with, just watch and learn, and then eventually you become part of it. And with Adela, we needed her expertise, so she was able to help us right away.
So I have something
she comes
to
in
add.
and out whenever so she's not constantly in the mob. But go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, like before mobbing, right? So if we are waiting for a DBA or a web designer, right, we would throw an impediment on the board and wait for days. But now with remote mobbing, right? So everybody is aware of the team is waiting, and we would just send a chat or send an invite. They would just jump in whenever they have time, jump in the mob, and it's no more. We are not waiting for people anymore. We just bring in and they leave as we need.
Yeah, I found that I'm the worst distraction. Like, hey, you want to go grab lunch? You want to do mob, like. So I'm the one doing all these drive-bys and not practicing what we should be preaching. So, but a hand wave is enough for me to know to back off. I know good stuff's being done.
Yeah, like you said, the flow, right? So when you're with more a team involved and you're working on something, the flow is you're more zoned in, right? No distractions. So you get things done much faster. We learn. Yeah.
Very good. Well, that's some great insights there, and I think I'm going to transition to some story time for some of the things you guys have y'all mobbed together. So one that jumped out is these marks and brands work you all have done together as a mob. So yeah, anybody want to kick us off on that story?
I could start a little bit, and Bala and Husham could kind of dive in on the technical side. So I think this is such a classic Texas story, right? When 10 years ago, or every 10 years, you have to renew your brand. I mean, this is like the cattle brand or a tattoo on the ear or a mark. I was shocked. I'm a city boy. I'm like, that still happens? He's like, oh yeah, that's a big thing. And every county in Texas has to register their. And the way they used to do it, because the last law that touched this was in 1921, was they would go into the county clerk's office at their county seat and draw their brand on this giant 70-pound brand book that was huge. And that's how they did it up until 2010. And so it was our county clerk that wanted we need to automate this. Like, we need to modernize this. So we have 4 legislatures in Texas. She gathered the team, the legislative team. She goes, you need to go change this law so we can do something online. And they did. So for me, it was the coolest of, like, wow, I can't believe that if something can't work, you can just go change the law. And then suddenly it opens up, new doors for you. So we wrote in a more traditional fashion. We had a PMO and one developer, and they fought through and made this application. And it was fine, right? And it was just for Collin County. Well, and it just worked. So you didn't have to really worry about it for another 10 years, right? So now's that time this year. And we decided to, actually, it started with another one of our developers was going through a class, and their capstone project he wanted to make at this modernizing of the Marks Branson Tattoo Project. And about that time, the county clerk goes, hey, why don't we go big? Don't just write it for Collin County. The state doesn't have anything like this. Why don't we write the application for the state? We're like, I don't know, maybe. I mean, can we do, it's never been done, so we don't know if it could be done or not. We were like, yeah, let's do it. And that's what we thought, maybe we need to mob this now. So we took all the work that he did as his capstone project kind of on the side, and then we really embraced it because we had deadlines, right? We had certain times that this had to be ready to go because, in fact, the drop dead deadline was September 1st of this year. So we had to meet certain milestones, and mobbing was the best way to do that. And I just asked Brian, I go, did mobbing help? He's like, are you kidding me? Of course it helped. I mean, because what he did was he wrote something just for the county. We had to make something that was, something, a way that you can pay, a way that the state can collect the money, not the county. We had to go to the cloud for this. That normally wouldn't be something we would do. I mean, it was just all new horizon stuff for us. So the mob, we learned together on how to do all this, and it's being used right now. I mean, people are still re-registering their brands at this moment. So, I just thought that was a great mob story. That we wrote something local, and then we were able to present it statewide. And it may very well be the only statewide Marks Branson tattoo in the country.
Nice. What was your experience, Husham?
I'm not part of this one from the beginning, but during the mobbing for the current project, I get more answer about this project, and I know right now how it had been implemented. Yeah.
And how about you, Bala?
So with Marks and Brands, initially we were a small team developing it, like Tim said, and we were using MVC and the Angular JS, and we were about to go live with it. But then later on, we have another person. He was working silo on our security and stuff, so we brought him in the mob. Then he refactored the whole code, and we started using Angular material for the UI. Right, and so he came on board, and we were all mobbing, and it just transitioned. I put the link on our chat, right? You can go look at it. So everybody, so that was a very good experience. We all learned Angular material. Yes.
And so this is something you didn't know beforehand. You had to learn on the fly. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yes. So that was one example.
And you transitioned from Angular JS to Angular and Angular material, right?
Angular, yes.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, Angular we were, but the material we were not using material, and Marks and Brands was the first project we did.
Yeah, that's a big transition.
Yes. Yeah, but because mob, right? So I mean, initially when we started mobbing, right, people like introverts and people would be scared to ask questions, right, in a public group, right? Even if I don't know, but now nobody hesitates, right? If they don't know something, I mean, people are willing to teach and people are willing to learn.
Yes.
So it's getting much efficient.
Fantastic. One part of that story that I really liked was you said it turned from someone's college or intern project? Is that how it started?
Yeah, it was so we had one of our developers was working on his degree, and so they have a capstone project. You need to do some major project. So and we needed to update it, and the person who actually wrote it is gone. So we just had to kind of figure it out ourselves. And so that's how it started. It started from his capstone project, which he, passed. He got his degree and everything, and then it blossomed into this statewide project.
But that was a legacy that was written 10 years back in .NET 1.1. So it was totally revamped. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
we had to dust that one off. I mean, that's, when a project happens only every 10 years, you tend to like let it, you don't update it every 5. You just wait till it's due again and like, oh, this is garbage. We got to
rewrite it. Yeah.
But the marks and brands, even haven't told Tim, I don't know if he remembers. I still remember before I came to the county, it was on our local channel 8. They made it a news.
Oh, yeah.
Marks and brands registration, right? Now it's online. You can register it from your home.
That's right. That's how we measure success around here, not by profit, but by like, does the news think it's a good thing? You don't ever want to be on the news if it's a bad thing.
So like our county clerk, like Tim said, she would even go to the state and change the law. Like our foreclosures, foreclosures, right? They used to stick it on the county court steps. But for a long time, we had been publishing, but now we revamped and now everything is online with map integration and stuff. So we do latest and greatest here. And Mob is helping us go even a step further.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So you had a local project, and it ended up going to the statewide. And would you say your quality is higher and other things that had applied to that, or was it kind of the same, but you got things done faster, or like how does quality play into it? What's the experience that people have had from that standpoint?
Yeah, quality-wise, we always had quality. Past 10 years here, right? Tim can answer that, right? So he has seen us. But the main thing Mob has brought us to the table for our team is cross-training. Right? Everybody has the knowledge now, and we don't have to depend on one person to do it. And also the learning, right? So one person might go learn something about it, but then we start using it, and others get cross-trained too. Technology wise as well as the domain knowledge, right? Both are now everybody shared.
Yeah.
Husham alluded to something earlier. When he started parting, they were looking at syntax. You would make little mistakes.
Yes.
And it reminds me of what I learned from Woody at his sessions was it's kind of like turning up the good, where if we're all in there together, we should get the best of us. And when we start to see things that are dropping, if you were doing this by yourself, those syntax errors would remain. But when the team's there to catch it, then it gets cleaned up right away. You don't have to worry about, oh, I need to go refactor that way back. You're sort of refactoring on the fly. And that's what I really love about it, is that there is hopefully a threshold where everyone is, everyone's doing good, high quality work.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you're getting, the team catches it and it makes it high quality.
And one more thing, different ideas came one idea. Different minds then produced a cumulative effort to get one result and then market as done successfully.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you bring up a good point, right? So it is hard to design on the fly when you're with a team, right? So everybody throws in ideas, but also now we have time, we can go think about it, and you can come back and propose a different way next day, and the team, team would embrace it, right? So that's
exactly.
And one more advantage, Austin, like team member stress, right? It has gone down way, because one person used to be responsible for one thing, and so if he has to be there 24/7, or he cannot go on vacation. But now everybody knows, so there's no ownership, right? As an individual person, the team owns it. So the stress level has gone down a lot too since we started mobbing.
Nice. Oh, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And I too have been on a project where started as a college intern project, and then it got turned into a real product. And so similar to your story there. So I just wanted to relate to that real quick and say that that's a cool experience to see something like that come out. And so I think we have time for maybe one more story. So maybe someone, if y'all could share a little bit about kind of the mobbing of the COVID. Was it COVID tracking, or what was the maybe you can set the stage there for that story?
Hey, Bala, let me set this up, and then you can kind of take over. And Husham,
Yeah.
Like we mentioned earlier, we were mobbing only for a few months before COVID really hit hard for us.
Mm.
And then when we went remote, the idea that everyone could share a screen was the same kind of effect, that we're all looking at the same screen at once, and working off of that, so that us going remote, and we only went remote for 90 days, but still, we had to write this COVID case management system and tracking, all the stuff you hear about. It did not exist. And we had to write it. And we struggled a little bit with healthcare because we didn't know each other, right? We didn't know that how to work with one another. And I'll just I want to wrap a bow on this, and then you can kind of get into the technical side of stuff. We finally wrote something where we were collecting data. We brought in Husham, and we had a dashboard so the citizens were seeing how many cases we were having, which city those cases were occurring. I mean, we were doing some really beautiful, like purposeful stuff. And it kind of, then it became vaccine time. So that was going on for about 9 months or so. And now vaccine time's coming around the corner. And we wrote, and this is what I wanted to mention, the judge asked us on New Year's Eve. So we were at 2:00 on New Year's, the day before New Year's Eve, because we were going to have the next day off. He goes, hey, can you put something together for us to put a case or a wait list together? Because people are constantly calling, I want a vaccine, I want a vaccine. This is late December. And we put something together within a few days. In fact, we didn't have to work over the weekend. We didn't have to work over the holiday. We had something rudimentarily ready to go by the next Monday. And we learned from that, and what we found was the judge kept saying things that the product did that it did not. Like, oh, it's just like going to the butcher. You just get your line. And we're like, so we're having to respond to these public statements. And what I'm really, really proud of is that, as the product was changing, basically every news cycle, the team delivered, and we had over 275,000 people on our wait list. And when we finally got enough vaccines, and cities and communities are starting to use vaccines or administer the vaccine, they were using our list as the master list. So the city of McKinney, which is our county seat, they go, we need 5,000. We've got 5,000 doses. We take the next 5,000 off the list, that in line, that we're in line, and give them 5,000. And then Frisco wanted another 10,000, and we just kind of worked our way down until the list was gone, and it was magic. So Bala, I could tell that story, but I didn't have to write that code.
So Tim, I don't know if you
make those changes on the fly.
Yeah, Tim, I don't know if you remember initially the COVID case investigation, right? They were using a spreadsheet and they were having contention issues, multiple people updating it. Yeah. So we have one developer, right? Excel macro, and still that did not work. So healthcare, we never worked with healthcare until that point, right? So then we got some quick requirements of so we started the project and we started bringing them into the mob too. They're non-technical people. And so that we were wrote something, and we just kept on developing on it, right? So as they started taking cases into, and they were involved, and we have our app dev team doing mob, and we have a content management system called Laserfish, our record folks use, and they have some forms they can throw it on the fly. They are not developers, but then we brought them into the mob. That was the first time they were introduced to the mob, right? Our record folks. And we all worked as a team, and they became technical too. Now they are on their own, right? They're not dependent most of the time. So that was a good time. We introduced mob to other teams too. And so the case investigation, we were successful, and we were able to maintain the list better than the state. You remember, Tim, that we used to have it. We had the accurate list, but the state was not keeping up to date, and the judge would throw a fit. Why are we not matching? Because we are correct, right? So that we have to go correct it. And when come vaccine time, like Tim said, when we turned on the switch to start the vaccine registration, our external server could not handle the load because we had other applications. And I was somewhere at my doctor's office, and mob here. You remember that, Tim? The server came. Server about it was crashing. But since we were all mobbing, then we spun up another server on our DMZ, and we built that in like 4 or 5 hours because everybody had the knowledge, and we were up and running in 2 servers. That mob helped that piece of vaccine.
I want to pull in one other thing, because there was a gap between when we wrote the COVID management system and the vaccine waitlist. By the time we like when it became this vaccine project, we didn't have the struggle that we did early with healthcare. We were a team now. I mean, so there was no long gaps between what are you doing, having to explain. The trust was there. So when we were able to do the next level, right, this vaccine piece, we did not miss a beat. Most of everything, all of the work we did was content related. It wasn't having to explain why we were doing stuff or having to build trust. It was already there.
Yeah, and Tim, another thing, after we started taking the registrations, right, then the people started calling healthcare. Where am I on the line, right? The line wait. So since we were mobbing, right, so one person said, yeah, we can write a quick web page to look up and send email through SQL Server. So the DBA did that. And we had a third-party application to send notifications by text or email, right? Everbridge.
Like a robocall.
So, yeah, like a robo. Yeah, so we somebody had that knowledge, so we quickly threw out a website so people can go. And healthcare said this is HIPAA data, so only person we have to verify. Tim Nolan is asking about his data, not his neighbor, right? So we put through in a lot of validations in there. So only Tim Nolan knows what phone number he used and his date of birth, and we sent out text messages. So mob helped in that piece a little bit. There was time constraint, and we delivered that in no time because people had different expertise. We all pieced it together and delivered it. That was one example.
Fantastic.
Wow, what a cool story. This is really I'm really inspired by it, and thank you for sharing these excellent stories. And I would love to hear more, but I think we're hitting our time box. But I can't. Really, really awesome stories for sure. Well, before we close, is there anything any of you would like to share or plug?
I have one quick thing to share. I just recently had finished some training, some very in-depth training. It was called the Lean Agile Visual Management course from Tony Ann DeMaria and Jim Benson and the Modus Institute. Fantastic. If you have the opportunity to take that course, please do. I've learned so much. I've been in the business 30 years, and I learned so. I thought I knew everything, and that really was kind of life affirming. Like, I've got a lot more work to do here. This is really neat. So I couldn't praise that enough.
Husham or Bala, you have anything to share?
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm good.
Thank you.
All right, right on. We'll wrap this up then. Thank you all so much for listening. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, Twitter, and more. And if there is someone that comes to mind, whether it's someone who might be considering to try out mobbing in local government or government of some kind, onboarding employees, onboarding people, or even just seeing how mobbing can help teams come together in a jam and really deliver. If any of those things really jumped out to you, please share this with someone else. But until next time, mob well, everyone, and have a good one. Bye.
You too.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.